very well researched, accurate, and I think objective, and with recommendations which I think are quite reasonable, which can be carried out, addressed to the government of Bangladesh, to this forum itself, to UN agencies, human rights bodies, and so forth. Now, both our chairperson and I think Mr. Baer also mentioned that this could well be a role model for other areas. And in fact, if we could have dealt with the implementation difficulties well, the provisions it has for a land commission, which is inclusive, taking account of customary law, and just fits in with the articles of the UN Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous Peoples, articles 25 to 30 that we have of inclusive other forms of dispute resolution. It provides for a justice system, including traditional chiefs and headmen and government courts, which could also be a very good example for other countries. There is recognition of customary law, although there is difficulties of implementation, which could also be a very good example for different parts of the world. But these are the things we are not being able to work on together with the government and the indigenous peoples to promote these, because the implementation is stuck in various crucial respects. Please forgive me for sharing some personal baggage. When the JSS and the government of Bangladesh was sitting before 1997, I was asked by both the parties to help in the process. So I share a little bit in both the positive and the negative parts of the Accord's content and also its implementation. I'm grateful to the government of Bangladesh for that opportunity and to the JSS. And I happened to meet the Honorable Prime Minister just about a month ago, and I'm grateful for the opportunity she gives me to a patient hearing to hear about our demands on the constitutional amendments coming on the Accord. There are many areas we have agreed. There are other areas, there are still gaps, and we will continue to dialogue with the government. So therefore, this opportunity today is really good that I welcome all the governments who participated in the discussion, including the government of Bangladesh and the indigenous leaders and other organizations. But I would hope that this door of dialogue is kept open more. I think the government of Bangladesh and the indigenous leaders of Bangladesh and other sectors of Bangladeshi civil society are not talking enough, whether at the floor of the Permanent Forum or at the cafeteria or in a restaurant or at the Bangladesh Mission or in the Permanent Forum rooms. I think this should happen. This is what the Permanent Forum is all about. Now, with regard to implementation and non-implementation, I'd just like to refer to the example. Some people say the half-empty glass and the half-full glass. So the Bangladesh government has told us of what is in the glass that is there, and yes, some of the things have been done. But the important thing is what should be in the glass is not there. And here, unfortunately, some very important bits have not happened, and I don't want to repeat it, but just highlight it, which is demilitarization, very crucial, and this also has a lot of implications for the entire stability of the country and Bangladesh's journey towards democratization, which we totally support with this government, but we, the indigenous people, certainly want to remain in it with their identities intact. The non-rehabilitation of the indigenous internally displaced persons until now remains a very, very crucial point of concern. With regard to the land disputes resolution by the Land Commission, I'm afraid I have to disagree with the representative of the government of Bangladesh in his conclusion that the Land Commission's work is not being carried out efficiently because of non-cooperation by the tribal leaders. I am ex officio one of the members of the Commission, and I can say this, that the Commission's chairperson has unilaterally decided on having a land survey rather than resolving disputes in accordance with customary law, which is the wording of the law, by not including the indigenous members, the regional council and district council and the other two chiefs. I am one of the three chiefs in this decision to do a land survey. So I am afraid I must say that the chairperson unilaterally has decided, and it is not the decision of the Commission, and it contravenes the Commission law, which we have asked to be amended soon in accordance with the advice of the Regional Council. Devolution to the autonomous institution, Regional Council and District Council. Although the word autonomy is not written in the Accord, let's not beat around the bush. The CHT Accord is about peace, is about autonomy, is about demilitarization. And this has not happened to the extent it should be happening, and I think the government has to take steps to do this. Another point which is not in the accord, but is really crucial, it is in the spirit of the accord, not in writing, which is human rights violation, psychological rehabilitation, gender dimensions of the violence that have been perpetrated against women. This needs to be addressed. And before I end, I just want to say two things, Madam Chair. One is on the terminology used. Now, national governments are free to use whatever term they use. And hopefully the government of Bangladesh will also use the terms that the indigenous peoples find is respectful and accurate in describing them in the Bangladeshi National Constitution and other laws. But that does not change the fact that under international law, the most recent instrument being the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People, the chosen term is indigenous peoples. Whereas, for example, in the ILO Convention 169 of 1989, we have the words both indigenous and tribal. But even if the Bangladesh government or other governments were to distinguish between somebody who is indigenous and somebody who is tribal, that would still not change the position of international law. For example, with Convention 169, all rights of the convention apply to both indigenous and tribal equally, even if you were to identify them. So this whole debate around indigenous, tribal, ethnic minorities, I think, is something that is dragging us down in the wrong direction. So it is international, under international law. Indigenous is the word that is accepted, and whether we call different things in national law, that is not going to change the situation. And lastly, I want to say about peace accords and the asymmetry of relations between governments and other non-governmental groups who sign accords. And in this case, the JSS, on behalf of the people of the Chittagong Hill Tracts. Now, when the JSS signed, they delivered what they were supposed to deliver. They handed in the guns, came back to normal life, and started to rehabilitate themselves and mix into the rest of society. Okay, there is still conflict there in the Hill Tracts, but this conflict is intra-indigenous. There is no insurgency. Indigenous groups are not attacking the military or police or government civilian installations or personnel. But yet, unfortunately, the military presence there and the nature of the policy of the government until today looks at it with security spectacles and anti-insurgency glasses, which we don't think are relevant. But I mentioned the asymmetry of these relations because the non-government group delivers, but the government side is yet to do. And where do you go to if the government side does not deliver? And the Permanent Forum on Indigenous Issues is one of the logical places to come to, so that it brings all the parties together, because there's no other forum within the United Nations or other international processes where you can go to for non-implementation of peace agreements and violations. With that, I thank you for your indulgence, Chairperson, for taking so much time, and thanks to everybody.